Okay, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to participate in this section and this training section. And I'm talking. My presentation is from one team, not for myself. And we hope to be able to share knowledge and contribute with knowledge to more information about the Asian hornet or Vespa velutina. Well, as Breishu told us before, I'm from National Institute for Agrarian and Veterinary Research, and I intend to talk today. We want to talk about the morphology, biology, life cycle, and sorry because I made some mistake. Okay, sorry, and about the habitat and net site preferences of this species. Well, about the beginning of this problem is one species that is native from India, Bhutan, China, and Indonesia. And these species occur more or less in the mountainous and cooler areas of these regions. So it may be pre-adapted for temperate environmentals. This species may be accidentally arrive at Europe, and it was detected for the first time in France in 2004. And in over the course of more or less 10 years, colonized almost the whole Europe. Well, we talk about one species that have developed invasive this an invasive alien species. And this invasive alien species is at the list since 2040 and is in the regulation implementing Commission since 2016. And that's why all the countries where this species can arrive and can damage must establish a plan, monitoring, surveillance, control methods to be prepared to limit his invasion. Well, what is an invasive alien species? Is a species whose introduction into nature or propagation in a given territory threatens or has an adverse impact on biological diversity and associated ecosystem service, or has other adverse impacts. Well, the Vespa velutina or yellow-legged hornet have all of this. And that's why it's a big problem in each region where they arrive, country and Europe. Why are the negative impacts of this species? Are a lot in environment and biodiversity, in beekeeping, and potentially in public health. Well, about environment and biodiversity is a predator of wasps and bees and other insects, as we see in this research that we show in this slide. We are working with other groups who are made researches about this kind of problems and this kind of effects, and Vespa velutina have impact in other insects, and this causes damage in environmental and in biodiversity. And what about public health? We see in this image news from Portugal about the problem of the nets, about people to destroy nets, and about the information from civil protection about cities. And why this? Because this species is danger to the safety of population, because it's very aggressive when the nets are disturbed. And This species can stay in natural agroforestry landscapes, but also in urban and peri-urban areas. And almost the nets in middle July, August, and in these months are biggest, and it's very easy to people have contact with the nets, and can be this species can be very aggressive in that conditions. In that conditions is very important to talk again. In this image, we show dustbins in urban and can be always in peri-urban areas, and we see Vespa volutina there. It's very common in the countries or in the regions where Vespa volutina is as invasive species, as alien species that there are near us, near the public, and if we see image like this, it's very natural that in more or less 2 kilometers we have nets. Well, poison is not considered more dangerous to humans than native European wasps or bees, but if there are a lot, of course, we can have more contacts and can be more dangerous because of this, because of the number of insects near us. And about beekeeping, my colleague João will talk about this matter, but only to share two informations. This is a real problem because we have this kind of news in the television, as we share in this image, beehives destroyed by Asian wasps in our news, in a big news in the big channel in television. And also the information that beekeepers, swarms, and outbreaks in honey productions with losses between 40 to 50%. This is a big problem, of course. And what about the Irish country? We have two informations in two journals, Irish Examiner and Irish News. And in this media, we have two informations about the Asian hornet. In the first, Asian hornet discovered for first time in Ireland, and this information is from May, but there is other information very important there. There is no cause for alarm. We must have knowledge to stay alert and to know more. And we have another one in the right of this slide. Asian hornets pose deadly threat to our honeybees. It's important to knowledge why, because this image is not for Asian hornets, and if we don't have good information, we can't have a good action in our region, in our country, and in our environment, and in our bees. Well, no more about this insect. This insect is Asian predator wasps. Is a large wasp. The queen can be up to 30.5 centimeters. But it's important, this information. The size varies between with food, with location and temperature. These three insects that are in this figure, in this photograph, there are both workers, and the size of the medium insect are similar to the bees, but all of them are workers and are captured in the traps. Well, we must be attentive of this, and we must be attentive of the environment and other conditions that influence the size and the compartment of the species, food, location, and temperature. Well, the exterior morphology of this insect, the adult has a head black with an orange or yellowish face, as we see in these red circles. The body is dark brown or black, velvety, delimited by a thin yellow band and with a single orange-yellow abdominal segment. In the four segments, we have the single orange-yellow abdominal segment. The wings are dark and the legs are brown with yellow ends. And that's why the common name, the common expression is yellow-legged hornet. About the information about abdomen and the appendage, we see in this image, in these figures, the structure of the abdominal of the females and the male. Females, we have queen and workers, and we see that the queen and workers have a stinger, a very pronounced stinger, as we see in the figure in the base of the slide. And the last segment of the abdomen is very different between the females and the male. The females have a pronounced segment, and the males are more or less without any specific pronounced segments. We show this slide not to show more about this difference, but to tell you that there is in the Irish country informants very important yet about this species, and there are websites and there are online very good information to better know about these different characteristics and to be more prepared to when we see one we can stay alert, or even we don't see, we stay calm. What about the eggs? At the bottom of each alveolus that make up the comb, there is one egg, usually one egg, because sometimes in different conditions and without problems with weather we can see others, but usually one egg is placed, oval in shape and milk in color. Only the founders carry out the posters from April onwards, and when they make up from the hibernation. There are, after the eggs, larvae, pupa, and after adults. The larvae and the pupa have milk color. There are always insert the nests. The larva eats or feed proteins and pass for 5 stages development. The pupa is enclosed in a cocoon until they complete the cycle and be a free adult. These stages, eggs, larvae, and pupa, are all the time inside the nets. The nets are spherical or pear shape, more or less about 1 meter in height at the maximum, I think, or we think, and about at the maximum 80 centimeters in diameter with a side entrance, not at the base, not at the top, but at the side. The nets are made by showed cellulose fiber collected from plants and water and other substances and made with saliva, and the present combs is in strata are secured by small columns like we see in this image. It's very important to know that we can't disturb an active net. No one of us can disturb an active net, and we are not prepared to fight with the nets or to combat the nets. Members of the public who suspect they have found an Axian hornet should report it to the official entity that have knowledge to combat the nets. There are 2 kinds of nets, the primary nets and the definitive nets, and we have both in this slide. The primary or embryonic nets where the queen made the first postures and then can lay severe dozens eggs there, are made from April until June, where the temperature of average are between 13 to 15, not exceed in average 5 centimeters in diameter, very fragile all the time, but strong in the volume when she grows, And we see in the left where are in the beginning and in development, and we see in the right the definitive or secondary nets that are in a tree, appear from May to December, with greater possibilities of being seen after the leaf fall. It's more easy, like now in November, October, November. It's possible to size of colonies consist of up to 10,000 individuals for all the season, not in a moment, but all the season, means that can rapidly decimate entire beehives. About the life cycle, this species has an annual biological cycle. The activity is diurnal, like diurnal species. The maximum activity is in summer when attacks the hives in very big, strong activity. The beginning of the year, in February, March, the founder queens initiate new nests, the primary nets. In April, May, is the birth of the workers and made the secondary nets. In September, October, we have the maximum number of individuals, sexed males and females, and we have the reproduction. In autumn, the future queens abandon the nets, and in the winter, the initial queens, males and colony workers die, and the future founding queens hibernate. And depending of the weather, we have a small phase between the winter and February, and it depends of that conditions. The development of this species, the Vespa velutina, is very active in the hottest months. Hibernation or drying in the coldest, but more severe or prolonged winter may affect its active lifespan. This is an example of other life cycle, because there are many images of life cycles. It's not important to say again what I say before. There is another one with more information, but more or less what I have told before again, but other way to see the life cycle. This is very important, because sometimes we think, oh, it's different. No, the information is the same. And it's important to tell that the average lifespan of workers, it's variable depending of the weather, of the temperatures, between 30 to 55 days, and the average lifespan of the queens is about 1 year, more or less, of course. We see here in the lifespan, in the part of the life cycle of this species, that since July until September is where we have greater pressure of predation associated with the growing of the nets, the exponential insects in the colony, and that's where we have more attacks on our European honeybee apiaries. We have in the base of this diapositive the figure of the captures in traps in Portugal since 2017 from other project, and we see there are the insect almost the year. The quantity depends of the conditions of the environmental, but there are always or since almost the time the presence in different quantity of intensity of workers, of queens and males either. The habitat and nest site preference. She is a resilient species. High minima temperatures and low maxima temperatures and high relative humidity are the most important to this species. And in our countries, because we have some similarities, are very common in coastal regions, which end up favoring the happy dispersal of the species. And the dispersal of the species, it depends of the weather, of other conditions, but can rise between 40 kilometers to 100 kilometers. And this is a very important issue. Each nest can around 2,000 wasps and 150 founders, and that in the following year they will be able to create at least 6 nets. This is a big problem. Nets can be very difficult to locate, and in the base of this slide, we show you the location of nets destroyed in Portugal since during 8 years, since 2012 to 2020, and all the nets, 70% are located at the tree. More or less 20% is the second big number are at houses in the roof and indoor. 3.6 in shrubs, 5.4, in the grounds 3.6, and in the walls 2.7. But usually build on trees with height of more than 5 meters. About the habits, the feed habits, the larva needs protein. That's why the insects are very aggressive to other species and to our bees, because the nets have inside a lot of larvae that need proteins, that need food, but the adults only consume sugar-rich liquid. This is a big problem to us, because the adults, if can go inside the colony, or the hives can go to eat pollen, honey, royal jelly, and other substances that are inside. Of course, there are other fonts of sugar-rich liquids, as the flowering plants, as we see in the base of this slide. Well, it's important to know that there are differences between the species, and if we know the difference, we can make less mistakes, and we have more information to better know and to better do things. As we see in this image, the European hornet also has or construct nets, but the opening is at the bottom. It's one big difference. About the medium wasp, the Lycovespula media, the small opening is at the lower hand of center. And there are other nets, but these are the most similar, but not so biggest as can Vespa velutina made in our country, in good conditions, in good environmental conditions. There are differences between also the adult insects. This diagram or this information is from Ireland, because there are good information online and we can use them to better know. We have signalized some information is very important about the difference. As we see, we have here 2 native iris species, the greater horntail wasps and the common wasps. They are native, but they are very different if we see in detail the insects. The Asian hornet has a dark color antenna, and the greater horntail wasps have antenna and eyes yellow, big difference for now. And there are in the size and in ovipositor very different points. About the common wasps, and we are only to take points about some particular details. We recognize that the abdomen of the Asian hornet is black, except the yellow band in the 4 segment that we are already talk about, and we recognize yellow and black striped abdomen in the common wasp, very common and native iris species. There are other species that we can compare, and there are a lot of information. It's not important in this presentation talk about every details, but there are, and the presentation is to stay with all the people. And we can see there are differences between each species that make us good information and good possibility to make good decisions, of course. This information is adapted for Northern Ireland Environment Agency 2020. There are other identification information sheets with possible areas of confusion between species and insects. I told about some of them, and we can study better each detail to have more knowledge about possibility of C1 Vespa velutina. I stay at the end only to say that it's very important the surveillance. Be attentive about the environment, because we can have passive surveillance and active surveillance. Passive surveillance, it's very important to all of us, the civilians, to have information to better know if there see any nets to talk about the people that can combat them. And we have also active surveillance, very important to monitoring adults insect only if we see an insect in flyer. Hoping our presentation, it was important to all of us. Thank you for your attention. And if you need something from us, we are the team of INIAV, and we have the contact of the site and my contact also. Thank you very much.
So, let us ask you the next.
Thank you very much, Breixo. Good evening to all. It's a pleasure for us Portuguese beekeepers to participate in this session and try to help our Irish fellow beekeepers. We have made a presentation focused on the role of the beekeeper and what can the beekeeper do to protect the hives and the bees, their own bees. It's a lot of information. We don't have much time. I will try to be as fast as I can. It's not easy for us to order our thoughts in speaking a different language, but let's try and do the best. Okay. So let me share this presentation. Okay. Everybody's. Is it shared already?
No, João.
No. Okay. Sorry, I don't normally. Okay, I think it's now. Is it shared now?
Yes.
It's okay. Okay. So as I told everyone, are going to approach how Portuguese beekeepers try to control Asian hornet and how they cope with the harm that this invasive species provoke in the Portuguese beekeeping sector, okay? First, let me speak a little bit about us and what we do. We are a federation. We started 25 years ago in 1996. For some time, we were a small organization, but in 2001, we started to work in the representation of the beekeepers by whole. Okay, so today we have 45 cooperatives, associations, and producer groupings affiliated in the federation. We ourselves are confederated in the Portuguese Farmers Confederation, all together with our colleagues from other farming sectors, grains, wine, olive oil, whatever. The Portuguese FNAP represents more than 65% of the Portuguese beekeepers and more than 70% of the national stock. The latest census told us that we have about 800 bee colonies in Portugal. It's a figure that has been, our stock is growing year after year from 6 or 7 years ago, normally at a rate of 5%, and the number of beekeepers are decreasing. So what we are observing is that there are a lot of big operations in Portugal, not a lot, but we are growing in that number. We are 10% of professional beekeeping in Portugal, which are more or less 1,000 professional beekeepers in Portugal, but they themselves represent more than 60% of the livestock, of the national beekeeping stock. We have two staff technicians in our organization, and what we do is to represent beekeepers before national and international entities. We participate in the Vespa Velutina Monitoring Committee, in the Asian Hornet Monitoring Committee, in the Standardization Committee. We represent the Confederation of Portuguese Farmers in the Copa Cogeca ANI Working Group and in the European Commission Civil Dialogue Group. So we always try to be present when and where beekeeping policy decisions are made, try to influence them, try to give our point of view. We also are members of EPBA, European Professional Beekeepers Association, and an observer member of BeeLife, and are trying to gather all conditions to join Apimondia, representing Portuguese beekeepers. So I'm not going to waste many time with this. So this is what we do normally. We provide technical support to our associates. The main objective is to give them way to find finance to their activities. The other main activity is dissemination and training. We organize National Beekeeping Forum, National Honey Fair. We participate in the Iberian Beekeeping Congress, organizing it, once in Portugal, the other year in Spain. 2020, this year didn't exist because of the pandemic. We normally have technical brochures and technical manuals available for beekeepers, trying to enhance their knowledge on the many subjects of beekeeping. We have a site, we are present in other social networks, trying to bring knowledge and bring information to our beekeepers. Our associations, our affiliated, the beekeepers organizations by themselves, they have a very important role in bee health. There's a model that is implemented in Portugal of sanitary control. It's called disease controlled areas. And in this map, you can see the part of the territory that are managed between the veterinary service, official Portuguese veterinary service, and a beekeepers organization. The objective is to better know what is happening in these small parts of the country regarding bee health, and to monitor, for instance, colony movements, especially entering. As you know, bee diseases are normally spread between regions and between countries by the action of the beekeeper and the movements of hives. So we try to have a role, have a say in whatever happens in beekeeping in these regions. 19 of our beekeeper associations are putting in progress this new way of trying to manage the bee health in their regions. And we also are trying to do some role in commercialization of honey, for instance, but also pollen and propolis. So what about the Asian hornet? My colleague has already spoke about the origin of Vespa velutina, how it came to Europe. As you see over there, we already have an hornet, the European hornet. It was present in Portugal. I see in this image that it wasn't present in Ireland. It's not an original species of Ireland, but it's of Portugal. And it's from 2011, after it arrived in France in 2004, it was first identified in Portugal. So we have, in 2021, we have 10 years of Vespa velutina, Asian hornet, in Portugal. So we can now say that we have some experience. Unfortunately, we have some experience in how we can fight this and how we cope with this invasive insects. So what happened in Portugal after the invasion? The first thing we tried as representatives of the Portuguese beekeepers is that always people never stop looking at this problem as a multi-factor problem. It's not a beekeeper's problem, it's a problem to the beekeepers, because it's a problem also to the environment, to citizen safety, to other agricultural sectors, and of course, the beekeepers, okay? As I said before, it's not a beekeeping problem, it's a problem for the beekeepers. And if we don't look at this like with this approach, for us, it's very complicated to deal with the problem, because only the beekeepers cannot solve it. It will not be a satisfiable answer, okay? So let me talk a little bit about what happened in the environment. Of course, it was a non-indigenous species. The arrival of the Asian hornet, being a natural predator of bees and other insects, made a disequilibrium in the environment and habitat and ecosystem equilibrium. Started to make an impact in the native wasp species, and this impact is increasing nowadays because of the way beekeepers act in order to protect their activity, their beehives, their bees. There's always a cost in terms of environment. This cost can be more or less important, but of course, there's always a cost. And we, in the first years of this of the Asian hornet invasion of Portugal, we feel a little bit of the feeling of the Portuguese beekeepers was that this subject wasn't taken care by the authorities, especially the environmental authorities of Portugal. It's not the way now, but this situation, this delay was very traumatic for us. Okay. So, as I said before, another major impact of Vespa velutina was in citizen safety. As Annabella before said, this species, the Asian hornets, normally nest in urban areas. There are lots of reports of nests in public squares, public gardens, schools, everywhere in the city, which was not the case with the European hornet nests in Portugal. This species doesn't have any problem in nesting wherever they feel it's good for them. So these are three examples of big Asian hornet nests, one in a house. So this family couldn't use that space in their house as they want. And this is a very big problem for citizen safety. Other impact is in other agricultural productions, namely in fruit production. These are photographs taken by colleagues of mine in orchards of apple. I think this here is a fig. You cannot really see, but these are sometimes in some years, not all years, there are reports of Asian hornets feeding on fruits, and this will be this will probably cause some money losses in this sector. It's not really the big problem. The big problem, of course, is in the beekeeping sector. So the impact on agriculture and on beekeeping is, especially on beekeeping, are by this. The psychological effect, one more problem we must cope with, one more cost we should deal with. It always makes the farmer psychologically affected. Then there's the actual impact, the cost augmentation, the loss of productivity, and this leads to demotivation. We heard a lot, it's very common nowadays, beekeepers, especially in this time of the year when the predation pressure is at the highest, saying that we can no longer cope with this. This is probably our last year with bees, etc., etc. So demotivation alongside with reduction of productive potential. There's the impact is by two sides. Production probably not that much, but it will suffer a decrease. And there's another way, it's the costs will augment. And it's another way of lose focus in what the beekeeper should do all year round. Is take care of bees, prepare them for the honey flow season, prepare the colonies to maximize production. So the Vespa velutina is another focus deviation. It changes the focus of the beekeeper to a problem, especially in a time of the year that normally 10 years ago it was for the beekeeper to rest, to prepare things, make businesses, sell the honey, and prepare for Christmas time, which is normally when sales are at the peak in Portugal. Okay. I hope I'm trying to be explicit in this English of mine. Let's hope everyone understands. So the impact on apiculture, and this is why we are here today. So Vespa velutina, the Asian hornet, provokes all of this in the colony. In the peak of predation, which is now, late summer, early autumn, in Portugal, and most probably in island conditions will be the same, because of the natural life cycle of the Asian hornet. So this inhibition of pastoral activity, you must understand that today it was a perfect good day for bees to work. 20 degrees, sunny, wind was weak, but in the seaboard region of Portugal, especially in the central and northern part, this is where the Vespa velutina is now present. Bees do not get out of the hives, so they do not recollect the pollen and the honey and the nectar. There is available now in the fields. There are lots of interesting florations in this time of the year in Portugal. So this inhibition of pastoral activity conducts to starvation, early consumption of honey and pollen winter reserves, and most probably the reduction of queen posture. You must know that in our conditions, especially in the seaboard of Portugal, there aren't any, the queen lays eggs the entire year. There's never a winter break or a summer break in this posture of eggs by the queen. Alongside with the reduction of pastoral activity, there's also a population reduction. There are a lot of bees that are predated, they disappear, and of course there is a reduction of the queen posture. Okay. There's stress because of poor nutrition conditions and because of bees do not get out of the hive as they should. So they don't defecate as they should. They don't provide water as they should. They don't provide food as they should. We've seen that already. So all this provokes stress. And this leads to an increase in mortality. Many queen losses, poor nutrition, and mortality of hives. It's not comparable to mortalities when Varroa appeared in Portugal back in '86, or even as in some regions of Portugal, Nosema provoked, and in Spain it's always an issue, Nosema serrana, but in Portugal not that much. Anyway, all these conditions, how the beekeeper manages their colonies and how he conducts the colonies, especially in this part of the year. Okay. Portuguese beekeepers change what they do in this part of the year. They started to do other things. So what happens? There's a reduction in the productivity of the beehives, more labor needed. We have to do more and do more times some activities in the apiary. We have to invest in feeding. Normally, feeding was a thing that beekeepers invest in the winter time. Now they are feeding in the summer and in the autumn, at cost which is very expensive, and they also have to invest in controlling Vespa velutina, controlling the Asian hornet, namely with traps and attractives. So more costs, less rentability, less money at the end of the year. Okay. And there's also, of course, loss of honey production, especially in some parts of Portugal where the honey flow in the late summer or autumn was important. For instance, some eucalyptus species have florations now in this time of the year, or for instance, some other species like the one that's seen in the right bottom corner, which is another from that flowers in the autumn, in the winter, in Portuguese conditions. Okay. So what can the beekeeper do? How can we fight, and how do we fight Vespa velutina? So the first thing I want to say to you, and trying to make us think all together. Yes. Okay. Okay, let's see what I can do. Thank you. So do we need to be even better beekeepers? Yes, we do. We must be better beekeepers. We have to do more and better. What we do, we have to do it better. What does it imply? We have to try to control the population of Asian hornets, okay? And we have to mitigate the effects on our bee colonies, you know? How can we do this? How do we do it in Portugal? How do we try to do it in Portugal? To control the wasp population, the main thing to do is to capture founders, okay? These three letters here, it's called primary nests, you know? So we now know with our experience that if we capture founders in the vicinity of the apiary, we decrease the probability of nests, definitive nests, and predation in this time of the year, you know, in summer, in late summer, early autumn. So this is what we are trying to do now, okay? We are trying to establish common trapping schemes to all the beekeepers adopt in the regions that are affected by Vespa velutina. So this is an example of a homemade trap, which is of course very economic. It's a bottle of whatever with some kind of technology applied, and we make it a very effective trap for capture bees, namely to catch capture wasps, founder wasps, queen wasps. It uses a bait. This here you can see the baits that normally we use, Portuguese beekeepers use. There's one that is has proved to be very effective. That is, once we capture a wasp, a founder wasp, we take the wings out, we put it in the bottom of the trap, and it will serve as a bait for others. Okay, but you can use something, one of these recipes or whatever. There are 1,001 recipes for baits, attractive baits for using these kind of traps. Okay, so these traps must be placed as closed or in the apiary. So we attract founder wasps, and we by capturing them, we avoid to have nests in the vicinity of our apiary in the following months. And by doing that, we reduce predation pressure in our apiary. Okay. Of course, this is very failable, but it's also cost effective and give us some results. Okay. So, as I said in the early slide, for every queen wasp, for every founder, we use traps. We try to avoid nests. It's cost effective. It's not hard to do it. It guarantees the capture of a high number of founders, protects the apiary, and, well, I say here it's environmentally friendly, but it's not environmentally, there's a cost, okay? Normally, we capture also other wasps in these traps, also other insects, sometimes even bees, okay? But it's a very easy task to concert and organize between an association and all the beekeepers in the region, okay? We establish a calendar and say to the beekeepers, do this, put the traps in these months, in this week, in this day, all together, use whatever bait you want, but use some that can be proven effective. And this is what we now say to our beekeepers. It's what you should do in springtime, in late winter, early spring, okay? Another way to deal with wasps, not in spring, but when predation already started, okay, this is what we use in the apiaries from late spring to this time of the year. We call it ARPs. The one in the picture is very similar to an Irish ARP. I think you can connect with this image. And the objective is that when flying, trying to capture bees, the wasps, passing by this instrument, this gadget, are electrocuted. Of course, this is not very cheap. It represents a large investment, especially for big commercial beekeeping operations. As more apiaries we have, the more ARPs we should have. It's electrified, so as you can imagine, most of the Portuguese countryside, where are 90% of our apiaries don't have sources of electricity, so the sun and the solar panels are normally used, which can be, of course, expensive. It's not a preventive method. We use it when predation is already ongoing. And okay, I say here that its effectiveness is yet to be proven. Of course, many people use this and are satisfied, others aren't. Perhaps if you want to know more about figures, Annabella can say a little bit about it, because I know that INIAV has a trial, ongoing trial, with some of these ARPs. So this method is for us a question mark. We don't know if it will be useful for the majority of beekeepers, and of course for the Portuguese beekeeping sector as a whole. You understand? Okay. So now let me speak a little bit about how can we mitigate the negative effects provoked by the Asian hornet in our bees. Okay. Another way to look at this, we have already see what we can do about the Asian hornet. Now let's see what we can do in favor of our colonies, of our bees. Varroa control is, of course, has always been for the last 30 or 40 or 50 years in Europe, and it still is one of the main causes of mortality. So we cannot allow Varroa population to be not controlled in our colonies. So what we are experiencing nowadays is that the Portuguese beekeepers are in need to guarantee an extra treatment for the colonies, a treatment that we normally didn't do before and we now have to do. After the crop, we normally now treat for Varroa, trying to guarantee that our colonies rest not Varroa free, but with Varroa controlled populations. Okay. We also have to guarantee or try to guarantee that our bee population is in quantity and in quality. Okay. This is very critical for colonies subject to predation stress, because of course the main consequence of the predation by the Asian hornet is the loss of population. So of course the quantity of bees influence the viability for the colony as a whole, increases the resistance of the swarm to the wintering, and it contributes to the brood viability. If we have a colony with a very low in population, it's hard to control temperature, it's hard to control humidity, and these two conditions are key for the success of brood, as you know. So other thing we have to guarantee is quality in the population. We need bees of all ages, okay? We need bees, old, young, and midlife bees, okay? Because the young bees are the ones who are going to be in these colonies in the winter. How do we guarantee this? Well, the answer we found is feeding bees. As I said before, normally in Portuguese conditions, we only need to feed bees during winter time, or if you want, as a stimulation in early spring. And nowadays we are feeding bees late summer, early autumn, to provide them as the nutrition they need, because we need big and good bee population in our hives in order to face the predation stress and to face the winter to come, okay? So when we feed bees, with artificial feeding, of course, okay, it's enough. Okay, it will be enough. Thank you, Rachel. Of course, this presentation will be available for all, okay? You can later spend more time in here. what we want when we feed bees is, of course, a balanced population, good reserves, good brood, regular brooding quantity, normal posture by the queen. So what we do when we watch decrease in population, insufficient flow or nectar or pollen, or we want to divide the colony, we supplement with protein, we supplement with energy food. Always be aware of the season, because sometimes we have to be careful with what to feed, with what we feed to our hives. So another way that we are experimenting or using nowadays is, normally these situations aren't observed in Portugal conditions because of the fire blazes in the summer. We control the vegetation around colonies, and nowadays some beekeepers are doing this in order to protect the hive entrance from the wasps. These two photos were taken by Annabella, our previous speaker, in the apiary of Inhav, which we visited together last week. And this is something we tried, and this is a queen excluder, okay, put in front of the hive entrance in order to prevent these wasps to go in and feed of our bees, because this colony was weak, and it was the only thing we could find to prevent the wasps to go in and feed of our bees, which is a behavior normally not watched. They normally capture bees flying, but this was not the case in this weakened beehive in a site, in an apiary which is completely surrounded by Asian hornet nests. So the last thing I want to say to you is regarding reproductive management. Many Portuguese beekeepers used to split hives, divide colonies after the spring crop, after in the early summer or late summer, in this time of the year. This is nowadays completely abandoned, okay? Because there's a high risk of failure because of the summer matings, okay? Queens mating naturally are, of course, a very good target for the wasps, okay? So it's goodbye for me, and we now can conclude in Portugal that, like Julius Caesar, the Asian hornet arrived, watched, and they win, or they are winning. Thank you very much for your attention. And I'm sorry, Brayshaw, but it's not easy. Thank you very much. I would
Hiya. I just want to say to both speakers, thank you so much. Just to introduce myself, I'm Rachel Hayden. I work on the UCC, the University Cork College, as part of the Atlantic Positive Project. So just saying thank you so much. I understand what you're saying about the language barrier, but both of you came across so perfectly, and I think your information is going to be so useful to the beekeepers here. Just to give some background, we did a survey during the summer to ask beekeepers like what they already knew about the Asian hornet and if they had already, had some background or knowledge about them. And not surprisingly, most beekeepers in Ireland aren't currently monitoring for the Asian hornet, but about 97.4% of respondents really wanted to. So this information is really great to get out there. And what we saw as well is that those beekeepers that are monitoring in Ireland don't really know how to, or at least there wasn't like a a strategy that was standing out. So the information you've provided will no doubt be really useful. I suppose my question is though, because in Ireland we don't have an Asian hornet population, I know there's the desire of beekeepers to monitor for them, but we're very wary of having that cost or negative impact on our native species, like our bees and our other insects. What do you think should be the next, I suppose, step for Irish beekeepers in monitoring the Asian hornet, taking into consideration that we don't have a population here yet?
Okay. I'm not. Am I on? Am I on? Okay. Thank you very much, Rachel, for your question. Well, I cannot say with all certainty that you don't have now, of course, Asian hornet population, but most certainly you will. The ones that arrived this year or last year to Ireland will prevail, and probably this will not be the case next year or in 2-3 years. Okay. So regarding to monitoring, and probably Annabella will have a say in this as she works in INIAV, and INIAV is the Portuguese coordinator of the monitoring task and all the monitoring schemes. But for us beekeepers, it's very important to know when it arrived in our region. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we are still monitoring for the Asian hornet in Portugal because, as you know, I don't know if Annabella mentioned it entered Portugal by the north part, by Galicia, or the part that we have the common border with the Spanish region of Galicia, and it started coming down, and it's now past Lisbon. It hasn't arrived in Algarve, for instance, or in the southern part of Portugal. So we monitor those regions, and we monitor the other regions. The monitoration of the regions without Asian hornet is for us very critical, as we should say to the beekeepers in those regions when it has arrived. And from now on, you should do this, or else you should have problems. Until now, there didn't exist any natural barrier to the progression, the territorial progression of the wasp, of the Asian hornet. It's percurred 80 kilometers in average a year. You understand? Mm-hmm. And what we observe is its presence is more visible, and the damage to the beekeepers are more visible in the seaboard, okay, than in the interior part of the country.
Oh yes.
This is of course for us because of the different climate conditions. In the seaboard there are much humidity, much more rain, less high or low temperatures than in the interior part. So this difference probably explains how the damages for the beekeepers in the coast part of Portugal are more intense than in the interior part. So this is why we monitor, and for us it's very important to monitor. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that that's a good point in Ireland, that we really just need to keep monitoring and probably, work with the government as well to keep monitoring going. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I actually have another question. Or yeah, no, it is a question. I get asked a lot by Irish beekeepers about what size hole can an Asian hornet fit through. So people are making their own, like the grid that you had in front of the hive. People want to start making their own ones, but they ask all the time, what size, diameter hole can an Asian hornet fit through? Do you know?
I don't know, but I can assure you that a queen excluder does the job.
Okay.
Not very good, because it's very hard for a bee to get out and get in a hive, but that's a measure you can start working with. But I don't know. I don't know that figure. I hope Annabella can answer you about that. But I don't know. I can search for and probably answer you myself, or any other, or the other two guests the speakers next week. I don't know that number. Sorry, Rachel.
No worries, no worries. I just thought I'd ask.
If I can tell something about that, I think the dimension, the important dimension is that the bee workers need to go out and go inside. I think is the best or the less dimension. Yes.
Yes, that actually makes a lot of sense, and that'll be my answer now when anyone asks. Thank you.
The workers bee is the answer. The dimension of the workers bee.
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Because what we are using in the Joan show is the excluder guide for the queens, or is a similar comparison, and it's okay with this kind of dimension.
That's great. Thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome, Rachel. Thank you.